Hello everybody, what's up? Today we're going to be looking at the opening Budapest Gambit or defense. And we're going to learn it in under 30 minutes. Okay, we're going to be looking at it from the black side first, and then we're going to switch to the white side. And if you're not familiar with my method, fasten your seatbelt because we're going to be going fast. And we're only going to be looking at short miniature games in rapid fashion with super light analysis. So let's get right into it. This first game is from Berlin, 1930, between a player named Alexander Warren and A.G. Selman. So if you're not familiar with the Budapest defense or gambit, here it is. D4, knight f6, c4, everything's normal, and then you play the move e5. Okay, this was popularized by some Hungarian players uh, in the early 1900s. Of course, it's been analyzed before that, but usually when certain players make it real popular, then that's where the name comes from. So Budapest Gambit or defense. The reason why you could call it a defense is because not all of the lines are actually gambits. All right, but a lot of them are. So depending on your taste, pick one. All right. So again, we're not going to get into major theory, but we're going to just learn this opening, get a feel for it. Okay, so d4, knight f6, c4, e5. As you can see, black is sacrificing a pawn. What's the principles when sacrificing the pawn? Is, well, you better have some compensation. So what black is doing is trying to gain time in order to attack the white king. Here he plays knight e4. White plays a3 in order to stop b4 from bishop b4 from happening. Black continues his development with d6. E takes d6. Bishop takes d6, and as you can already see, black has a lead in development in exchange for the pawn. So here already we can say that black has adequate compensation here. All right, and if your tactics are weak, I suggest that you work on your tactics because black is already has a major threat here in the position. White played g3. Looks normal, right? Play bishop g2, fiend kettle. Alright, then follow up with say knight c3, queen c2. Alright, everything's looking good, and he's just a pawn up. However, the tactic I was talking about, knight takes f2, king takes f2, and look at the queen on d1. Now you see it, right? Just simply bishop takes g3, check, and black resigned. So you might say, why did I show you a game like that? Well, when you're learning the opening, it's good to study the miniature games because you can see what happens when the player or when the side that you're studying, right, has things go their way. All right. So what did you learn from this opening, from this game? Well, you saw that black is seeking rapid piece development. Okay, he sacrifices a pawn in the opening for development and time to attack the opponent's king. And this is exactly what you saw. A 7-move game, 7-move win from the white pieces. So that's the first principle. Okay, that you're not trying to hold on material here, that you're going for activity. All right, let's continue on. Next game took place in 2017. This is between Solskis. Oh, I'm sorry, Vanegate with the white pieces and Grandmaster Solskis with the black pieces. Again, we see g5 here, and it's not so much necessarily to try to win this pawn back on e5. Okay, you'll see. Right, the bishop is developed and gaining time. Right, g5, and you can see black is willing to compromise his position somewhat for activity in this opening. Knight c6, e3. Pawn is finally gained back. Knight d2, d5. C takes d5, queen takes d5. So again, you can see black's activity. Okay, now he has restored the material equality although his pawn structure is a little bit awkward with that pawn on g5. Queen c2 was played. Now bishop e6, e4, queen a5. Again, the constant theme is development. Notice how black is way ahead in development here, and white steadily is falling behind. a3, another pawn move. Again, look at the development. Castle, castle's queen side. Soskis plays knight c6. This was a rapid game, by the way. Winning is just rook d6 here. Okay. And let's say after a move, a bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, knight c4, rook takes, king takes, rook d8 check. If he tries to go back, and simply bishop takes c4, bishop takes c4, queen c4 check, king b1, followed by rook d2. The idea in showing you that variation is just to show you how active black gets and how his game is based on this activity. So that's like the first major thing that you need to remember, is that as black, right, you have sacrificed a pawn in the opening, so you need to be getting your pieces out and developing rapidly, and not be afraid, right, to attack in even a semi-awkward manner, like for instance playing moves like g5 to activate your pieces, and in this case the bishop, put the bishop on this aggressive square on g7 in order to get activity. King b1 was played. So back to the game, it was knight c6. And like I said, rook d6 is winning, but knight c6 was played. King b1. And king b1 again being a natural looking move, right? Getting the king off the same file as the queen. King b1. And again here, if you're tactically astute, you can see that the game is over right here. Black is already winning. So what's the next principle? Is that as a result of black's activity, there often are a lot of tactical opportunities, right? When black is active, ahead in development, and white is not so active, there's a lot of tactical opportunities on board. Okay, so if you're gonna play this opening, you want to sharpen up your tactics, definitely. Like here, if you wanted to pause, there's a winning move for black already. Black here played bishop a2 check. And the idea, of course, is if the king takes a2, then simply knight b4, exploiting the pin on a3, and winning the queen as a result. So this is why he didn't capture the bishop. Instead, he played king to a1. However, when the king moves to a1, this pawn is now pinned, and it allows the move queen takes a3. The other choice that black had is to go back to c1. And after king c1, then knight d4. And this forces forces white just to play, kind of kamikaze move here and play queen takes c7. And just drop material. And black can just liquidate down. Let's take that with check first, and then say after king d2, and then black is a piece up. So king a1 was played, queen to a3, and now you see the devastating discovery check on the menu. e5, blocking the coordination of the bishop. So now there's like a threat here actually, but no problem. Queen a5 could have been played here, but just simple bishop b3, and black just won that game. Okay, so I'm sure you're already getting the principles of the opening already. And notice I'm not going through any lines. I'm not like, oh, this line, that line, because again, all of that stuff is just aids to create confusion, right? Oh, this line, bishop f4. Okay, sometimes white plays e4 here. When you first learn it, don't even worry about the lines. Learn the principles, right? Learn what you're trying to do, and then you apply that to no matter what white plays. You're still trying to play the same in the same style. You're still trying to be active, okay, right? And you're still engaging in rapid development activity, piece play. That's your game, regardless of what. If white plays e4, bishop f4, knight f3, right? Don't worry about the specific lines at this point. Let's keep going. Back to 1918. This game is between Akiba Rubinstein, the white pieces, and Madeline Vidmar. So some old school masters with the black pieces. So here you see white classically defending the pawn and developing at the same time. So this is something you would see like today, right? It's a modern line. Again, you see black's commitment to piece activity, right? He gives up the pawn for his development. And there's a tactical blow right there. And it's against a great master in Rubinstein. And so that's why I say in order to play this particular system, like you have to be alert for tactical opportunities, because when you're a pawn down, the stakes are really high, right? If you're material down, you have to be able to spot those points when you have a chance to turn the tables. Okay? Rookie 8, and you can see again what's the main theme: activity. It doesn't matter what white plays. You remember what you're trying to do. You have 3, and now you see Rubinstein's king that's exposed. Rook lift. Bishop h5, and again you can see the brutality of the discovered check here, and it's going to be mating too. Right after king g4 or king h4, queen h5 check is unstoppable. So this is a game you probably never even seen. And so now you get the gist of what black is trying to do in the position. So we'll switch over to the white side, and then you'll see what it looks like when white has his way. Okay. Actually, I'll show you one more game when white plays this move e4. Okay. This game is from 1945 Russian Championship. So, again, old master Joseph Rudakovsky versus Boris Ratner with the white pieces. So here's the last game from the black perspective. Again, you see this move. This is a move Alekhine used to play in this game. So if you look at Alekhine games versus the Budapest, you will see this line. And basically, black is just trying to push white. Excuse me, white is trying to push white off the board with this big center. And again, the principles are the same when dealing with big centers. Whether it's 4 pawns attacking the Alekhine defense, whether it's 4 pawns attacked in the King's Indian defense, whether it's your Austrian attack in the Pyrrhic, it's the same principles, right? Anytime white sets, or anybody, right, sets up a huge center like that, it's on the onus is on the other person to prove that center is weak, right? By attacking that center vigorously, right, and either fixing that center so that those pawns are immobile and they become liabilities in the position, or force the opponent to move the pawns in a way where there's holes created in the pawn structure where the pawns are no longer effective at restricting their pieces. So it's called playing around the center, or playing around the pawns. Okay, so the principles are the same. So don't worry about the line. Like, oh, this is e4 and trying to memorize a line or something. It's just, okay, the opponent is play e4 here and is basically trying to set up a big center. So your job is to demobilize that center, attack the center, right, or play around the center, right, just thus rendering it ineffective. So let's see what happens in this short game. Knight e6, bishop e3. And that's another thing you'll learn about this opening, is that black doesn't spend too much time putting, he already gives up the e5 pawn, right? So he doesn't have pawns to put in the center. He only has the d6 pawn. Okay, so black's attacks versus center are going to be piece oriented, very hyper modern in scope. Knight a6, bishop c5 is played. Queen d2, there's d6, knight f3, castles, bishop d3, dark square bishops traded off, knight c5, bishop c2, knight comes to b4, and now white castles queenside. And notice here, white has a little space advantage in the center, but material is even, so it's not even really a gambit. It's not even a gambit anymore. Okay, it's pretty even game. Again, here black is taking more of a positional approach and must address the white center. So here knight takes c2, getting rid of the bishop. Rook e8, so we see some pressure on the center. Bishop d7. White pushes with e5. b6. King c1 is played. D takes. So there's attack on the center, and now you see the center breaking down. So now white has this isolated pawn. Queen c8. And this move has a couple of purposes. One, it does fortify the e6 square here, but also black plans on shifting the queen over to a6. h6, hitting the queen. Queen a6. Rook d4. Bishop f5, good move. Knight d2. And here is like basically the first major error of the game. Actually, rook d4, allowing this move right here, which is threatening knight d3 is probably the first major error. Knight d2, and of course the knight moves so that the rook can capture on d3 here. But just more pressure now is put on the d3 square. Rook a d8, rook takes, rook f1, attacking the bishop, and also trying to avoid the fork situation here. The bishop simply drops back to g6. Okay, and now white plays knight d5. The big blunder, and of course it looks like a good move because you're attacking here, you're threatening here to capture, and but unfortunately, after a simple move like queen takes a2, black is just winning here. Okay, so white resigned after queen a2, so he just blundered here. Again, the point of that was just to show you that it doesn't really matter the what white is doing. Just understand what you're trying to do is black. Okay, the plans are the same as far as like your piece activity and development in the position. Okay, you want to be active. You sacrifice the pawn, and you want to be very active against the white king here. So now we're gonna flip it around, and we're gonna look at it from the white perspective. So what happens when white has his way? Oh, I'm sorry, I had to show you this one more game from the black side, real short. Again, another line with when white plays e4. This is from a player named White versus a player named Davis Hastings, 1951. Again, so e4 is played here. Notice black keeps with the theme of activity. So already ahead in development, but he is down a pawn. Bishop e2. That and then the knight. Just plays f5. Bishop takes d4, f takes d4, and now queen d5. This stops castling temporarily at least. Knight c6, a3, knight d4 again. Black is just alert tactically. He's already threatening knight c2 check. The queen cannot capture because then the queen would be on an unprotected square, and any discovery by the this bishop here would capture the queen. So he plays c5 instead because he figures he's going to steal this knight. Bishop drops back to e7. And this is still a threat. So king f1 is played. So already you can see the development, leading development by black. Queen takes d8, rook takes d8, knight c3, bishop c4 check. The game is over already. Black had to resign. So I wanted to show you that game real quick. Of course, if the king comes back, then you have the fork happening again. Okay, so now you see what black is trying to do. So we're gonna pause it and we're gonna flip the board, and now you're gonna see it from white's perspective. Okay, now it's time for the empire to strike back. So what does it look like when white has its way? First game is from 1919. Reginald Price Mitchell versus William Winter. So d4, knight f6, c4, e5. There's the Budapest Gambit. D takes e5, knight g4, knight f3, bishop c5, attacking f2 already. So again, you see black trying to be active as he should be. Knight c6 is a3, a5 to stop the expansion of b4, bishop e2, knight g takes e5. And this is very much in the way Karpov handled the Budapest Gambit against Nigel Short in game one of their candidates match. Knight bd2, d6, castles. So what do we see so far from white? Okay, what we see is consolidation. So if you're white playing this, you know black is trying to be extremely active. Like you already took the pawn in the opening. So now you're just simply trying to consolidate, and then you're going to try to use your extra space to gradually drive the black pieces in the compromising positions. Okay, because the material has been restored already. Okay, the game is structurally equal, right? So if black is allowed to, just maintain his piece activity, right? His pieces are well placed, then he has no problems in the game. So all white really has here is a little bit of extra space, okay, and he has his ability with his pawns to drive the black pieces back. That's kind of black's weakness in the position, is that since he doesn't really have any pawn preponderance in the center, he just has pieces in the center. So those pieces can be attacked by pawns. Knight e4. Knight takes f3. Bishop takes f3. Knight goes back. Knight back to c3. Knight e5. Bishop e2. And notice at this point, the game is equal. Okay, so if you're playing black, you're fine. White is fine here. Okay, but white has calmed black down. Okay, it's activity. And this is what black wants to do. I'm sorry, white wants to do. So c6 is played. I'm not really sure too much about that move because the weakness that's created on d6. Maybe a move like rook e8 is better. Okay. Anyway, c6 was played, and this is what I'm talking about. So now the f pawn is free to move. Black plays b3. But here, a normal looking move is f4, but we'll see what happens later. So b3 is played. Many times white will put the bishop on b2 in this line. And now bishop e6. Right, normal move. Right, normal developing move here. But now look what happens. White just expands with his pawn on the king side. And now he begins to drive the pieces back. Knight g6. And just like that, f5 is played. And this puts black in a bad position. Queen g5, f takes g6, just unceremoniously drops a piece. Bishop takes e3 check. King h1, not falling for the okie doke that the bishop takes e3, queen takes e3 check, king h1, and queen takes c3. Now, of course, instead of bishop e6, rook e8, and there's no problems for black there. But king h1, f takes g6, bishop takes, queen takes, and black is just a piece down here. Queen d3, queen e5, bishop f3, bishop f5, and then queen d2, and black resign. So again, what you see again from white is just a neutralization of black's activity. Basically, he throws some water on the fire and turns the game into like a positional struggle with the advancement of the pawns, kicking back the black pieces, and also if black creates weakness, then attacks down the d file. Let's look at the next one from white. Rudolf Spielmann versus Richard Reddy, Vienna 1921. Again, white chooses to defend the pawn here. This was popular at the time. Black Gambit, so Reddy just goes for the optimum activity. He just gives up the pawn. And we can see black has basically achieved his maximum development, although he's a pawn down here. Spielmann plays g3, bishop g2, rook a e8. So here's kind of like the pinnacle of black, of what black wants. Black is like fully developed. I mean, you can't really ask for any more out of this position from black. All right, black is fully developed. Okay, and we could say that he has compensation for the pawn. I mean, there's really no way that with correct play that white can really hold on to the pawn. I mean, a bishop on c3. I mean, a bishop on b4 is attacking the knight on c3. You have 3 pieces on e2. The only thing white can try to do to hold on really is to hold on to the pawn. That is play a move like e3 here. Okay, e3 or e4, but without going into deep analysis, he should be forced to give up a pawn or give up the pawn sooner or later. Here, Spielmann finds f3. Okay, so he realizes what's going on, and his idea is just to simply play f5. e4. So after bishop f5, e4. Okay, so black is trying to be active, and white is trying to calm things down. So look what black does. So black is playing along how he's supposed to play. Now, it might not always be the correct move, but understand the spirit of how black is playing and understand the spirit of what white is playing. White is trying to calm things down. So bishop takes g5, and now the fireworks begin. Now g5 was an error, but the fireworks begin. Knight takes e4, queen d5 check, and here, of course, Reddy miscalculated. Maybe he was expecting f takes e4, and queen takes g5 here, where black is fine here. This in-between move, queen d5 check, throws a monkey wrench in the situation, because the queen is attacked here on e7 by this bishop. So king h8, and he just drops the queen, and he just doesn't have enough compensation for the queen. Bishop takes c3, and Reddy tries, but he's already busted. So again, we see the same theme, piece activity from black, and the attempt by white to just calm things down and consolidate. Okay, and then again using his pawns, right, to push the black pieces back. Right, that's a common theme. Using the pawns, as you see, f3 played, and e4 to push the pawns back. Let's look at the next one. Bogolyubov with the white pieces versus a player named Ladislav Prox, 1922. Here, Bogolyubov opts for the instant e4. Notice that the knight is attacked right away. c3. Knight h3 is played. And again, knight h3 gives black the option of, white the option of playing f3 here. Kicking the knight out, d6, bishop g5, queen d7, e takes d6, b takes bishop e2, f6, bishop f4, knight c5, f3, there goes the knight. It's kicked out. And again, you see the same strategy employed as the last game with f3. Again, kicking the black pieces out of the position, right? Consolidating the extra pawn and neutralizing black's active play here. Bishop e3, queen f7, knight f4, and there's a trap here. After knight takes c4, just simply queen a4 check, and black was forced to resign. So again, a small miniature, but it allows you to see exactly what white is trying to do. All right. Here's the great Alexander Alekhine. This is the line he always will play, e4. Okay, so black captures his pawn back, but at the cost of tempi. I already explained to you from the black side the principle of when white sets up a big pawn center. That's a battle. You're trying to play around, either destroy the center, play around the center, or blockade the center and immobilize those pawns. f5. So the pawn advances and kicks the knight to the side of the board. Knight g5, queen e7, queen g4, f6, and we can see already that black is being forced to compromise his position. g6, queen takes h4, f takes g5, bishop takes g5, queen f7, bishop e2, castles, rook to f1 by Alekhine, knight c6, knight c3, knight d4, f takes, queen takes, is forced, and then rook takes, bishop takes, and Alekhine is the one that becomes very active in the position. Queen b6, castles, and notice how the tides have turned. Black started out his game trying to gambit for activity, and it's white who winds up with the overwhelming attack here. Knight e6, check, king h8, bishop takes e6, queen comes to e6, and then that's all she wrote. So let's end the video right there. We looked at the Budapest Gambit from the black side and the white side, and hopefully you get a feel got a feel for the position. And like I said, my recommendation now is you go and play some speed chess, and if you can even play it against the find a partner or something, or a friend, and just play each side, play the black side and play the white side, and of course when you're black and somebody plays d4, just keep playing knight f6, and hopefully they play c4, because that's another thing about it, is you can't get into the gambit if the person plays timidly. If they play knight f3, something like that. So hopefully you can get somebody that's going to play the queen's gambit against you and give you a chance to play the position. So now again, you should have the basic general feeling of what you should be doing with the black pieces, and then you should have the general feeling of what you should be doing as white. I suggest you play some bullet games, play some blitz, and don't worry about the theory. After you get a good feel for the position, then come back and then start looking at some more competitive games where the games go a little bit longer, and then you start seeing how the middle games go and such. All right, and do the same thing from the white side, then or the black side, then the white side. Again, go back, play some more, then do the same thing. Look at typical endings that arise. Okay, then only after you do all of that, then you could go back and maybe look at specific variations and stuff like that. Like if you want to get deep into the opening, look at specific variations. But if you follow my methodology, your opening, um, you know, learning curve will decrease rapidly. Like you'll get a good feel of the opening, and you'll be playing it without even really having to study the lines, so to speak, because there's a lot of brainwashing that goes on in chess, and it's like I think a lot of stuff just holds people back, and I mean that's why it's good to have coaches because a coach will cut out a lot of the nonsense, that you do like when you're just studying on your own, guide you in the right path because a lot of that stuff with like learning all these specific lines that's truly for the master players, for professional players. Um, it's for most, it's good enough just to learn the principles and learn the principles and themes of the position. When you learn those things, you'll be able to deal with deviations or what we call lines. You'll be able to if somebody plays e4, you won't be just throwing off like, oh my God, what do I do? Well, you do the same thing. You do the same thing that you did when the person played bishop f4. Okay, it's just that of course you got to look at the tactics and say, okay, what's different about this position? You have to use your brain. And that's the problem. It's like with all this analysis, it's like we have more analysis than we ever had. You know, but are you really getting any better? Can you play like Morphe? Right, you figure like right, the guy had no computers, no nothing, but plays brilliant games. You know, it's like can you go? It's play. Guys playing in the 1800s. Can you even approach that level of play with all of the technology and databases and all that stuff? The answer is probably no for most people. So again, it's there's a lot of stuff like sometimes too much information is bad. But anyway, I'm rambling on now. So please like and subscribe. Check out the links below, and I'll see you guys on the next video. If you have any opening suggestions, holler at me. Talk to you later.